Vivy Fluorite Ice Songs episode 10 was definitely both beautiful and haunting at the same time. But yeah, quite a bit to talk about in this particular episode, so let's jump right into it. The episode opens up with Vivy now a part of a museum. It has been 5 years since the last Singularity project that we had witnessed, and she no longer can sing. She no longer has Diva with her, so she was unable to sing, and after kind of a farewell party, no farewell song because obviously, again, she doesn't believe that she can sing anymore. She's now been retired. She's now at this museum. And people come and visit, but they kind of play little videos of her singing because, again, she can't really sing, and she just talks about what she was able to do. And she catches the interest of a little boy, and this little boy kind of wonders, you can't sing anymore, right? Is that why you retired? Why couldn't you sing? And we find out later, yes, this boy is indeed Dr. Matsumoto, the one that we met at the very beginning of the entire show, the one that sent back the data to Vivy, or to Diva, in order to do the Singularity project. At the same time, Matsumoto, the program, comes and actually visits Vivy. Kind of find out it's been roughly 65 years since they first met, so this means that Vivy is now 66 years old. And through their conversation between the two of them, they kind of find out that the Singularity project was done. The last Singularity they did was actually the completion of it. Of course, Vivy inquires, well, then why are you still here? Why are you not asleep if your objective is done? And this is where we're kind of starting getting a feeling that there's something else there that he obviously sees, or there's some reason why he's still running. We kind of find out that over the time of the episode, we find out that he is there to kind of fulfill a wish from Diva to kind of keep pushing Vivy forward in order to regain her song. And that's why we find out later, he's kind of like, I fulfilled my promise, but I don't think that Vivy can sing it, but she's at least singing, creating songs, so we'll have to put our race on a hold. I did really like that part of this episode where Matsumoto kind of gives her a goal or a race. She's like, I'm going to find out what I'm going to find out. You find out the answer to the thing that you're questioning. Which the thing that Vivy is kind of questioning is what she was told when she was first created by her creator. And her creator basically told her to sing from her heart. And all the other doctors are like, why are you giving an AI something as complicated as a heart? That's something that technically even humans don't really fully understand. And that was the thing that she was trying to discover herself, is like, what is this heart and what does it mean for humans? I want her to, basically answer that question. And so that's why she created her with such an obscure mission by adding heart in there, something that's very difficult to define. Yeah, we know what a physical heart is, but what does it mean to sing from the heart? And that's what she kind of created for her. And that was the question that Vivy essentially needed to answer in order to figure out how to sing again. And at the same time, Matsumoto's saying that he has something that he's racing for, which is to help her find her song again. And it was really cute because then she ends up, giving that to this boy that we end up finding out is Dr. Matsumoto. And the idea that, let's race. You bring a friend here, and I'll figure out the answer to my thing, and we'll race. And he ends up bringing friends, and then he ends up growing up, and he gets married, and he has a child, all while she's trying to figure this out. Like a 20-year span kind of goes through while she's still trying to figure out and then eventually write this song. And the way that she finally writes the song is to essentially, when he brings his child to Vivy, it insinuates his wife died. I might have missed something, but it insinuates that she was either in a coma or she died. I think that they were saying that she went into a coma, but he was essentially like, no matter what, she's here inside of me. And that's why I kind of assumed that they were implying that she was dead, because that's usually something you kind of say when somebody has, passed on, and somebody that's, lives on inside of you. And that kind of triggers something in Vivy, and so she starts checking inside of her in the archive, and it eventually finds, basically all of her history, the entire Singularity project, and ends up writing a song based on all the memories and all the people that she has met. She writes Singularity Project, which is a song. And this is kind of where Matsumoto realizes, okay, I've fulfilled my objective. She wrote a song. She can't sing it yet, but she's wrote a song. And at that point, Vivy decides to go to sleep for a while. And of course, unfortunately, post-credits. Hope everybody actually watched post-credit. If you didn't watch post-credit, pause this and go watch it, and then you can come back. But yeah, post-credits, Vivy wakes up and everything's on fire. She goes out and she finds a whole bunch of AIs massively murdering humans, and all humming a tune. Now, I try to see if I could remember if that's a tune that was connected to Vivy herself or Diva. I couldn't find the big ones were, of course, the song that she sings at the very beginning. That's her signature song. Even the Singularity Project song didn't really have that particular hum within it. But there's humming a song. They're massively murdering people, and she doesn't know what's going on. So that's where we kind of leave it. So obviously, the Singularity Project did not work out. Now, I'll put a caveat on that. It could have worked out, but I'm going to put a big but on there. So first of all, episode was beautiful. Really did love it. Really kind of had this aspect of her really trying to find her song again. Losing everything. She kind of mentioned this idea that she no longer has anything. So when Matsumoto shows up, she's really excited. She's like, okay, where are we going? What's the next singularity point? He says, we're done. You're no longer needed. And that's mainly because, in his eyes, they've hit all the singularity points. And she's upset at this because, again, she no longer can sing. She no longer has her original mission. And even as Vivy, she no longer has the Singularity Project. So she has nothing at this point. And that's why she's so desperately looking to reclaim what she had before, which was to sing from the heart, make people smile. So it's really sad on that point is she's literally a museum point because she has nothing left to her but herself. That's it. She's just basically damaged goods at this point. So that's really unfortunate. And like I said, having Matsumoto the entire time, showing up every year to kind of ask her how she's going with her whole project. And then, of course, meeting Dr. Matsumoto as a boy, growing up, having a child, obviously going into some kind of science field, as he's called the doctor at the very end. Really cool. Getting all these insight, and of course, obviously, the end where everything just goes to crap. So, lots to talk about. And it's funny because it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't seem like there's much here, but her discovering herself again and realizing the Singularity Project failed. But there is actually a lot to talk about here. So I have 3 points to hit. 3 theories and points right now that are really jogging around in my head. So let's go down each one of them. Was Matsumoto, the cube, the robot, the bear, was this Matsumoto program actually sent by Dr. Matsumoto? There's my first really big question mark theory right now. Now, granted, the Matsumoto system itself does seem like it genuinely wants to fulfill each of these singularity points, but the question is when Dr. Matsumoto sent back the program, was it sent to awaken Diva, or was it this cube that actually had all this within it? Or was what Matsumoto did activate Diva, because she does reach a point of acknowledging a singularity point before Matsumoto shows up and talks to her. So was the activation of her and these singularity points the key thing that Dr. Matsumoto did? And this other thing is trying to basically distract her from those points? That's the big question. Because obviously we know that something is from the future that came back. And like I mentioned in the previous video, there's obviously, in the singularity, there is another future threat that came back and messed with things. Yugo mentioned this idea of this, this vision that he had, so to speak, that came back, gave him this futuristic program. So obviously there's something else there. Was it Matsumoto? Is the big question mark. It's a little hard for me to go with this theory just because the idea that Matsumoto essentially guided her in every step. And yes, technically she did activate in that first singularity and acknowledge something that could have just been Matsumoto, the program, communicating to her. So it's a kind of a far stretch, but I question if Matsumoto is actually not the threat in the end. And it was actually Diva trying to fix things throughout everything. But again, it's kind of muddled in the idea that nothing communicates to Diva or Vivy what to do and when. So him sending anything back doesn't really help much if she doesn't know what to do. The next point is, were they actually technically successful in the Singularity Project? It's just this futuristic thing, object, person derailed it. So in the end, I see a lot of people commenting that, oh man, they failed, but did they actually fail? They technically succeeded. It's just something was outside of the bounds of what Matsumoto was given. So essentially, when Matsumoto was sent back as a program, he was given a snapshot of what this singularity had happened. And so when they went to this other singularity and started trying to change things, he only had snapshots of what happened. And anything, again, they've said it, I think, 3 times now, anything outside of this, you can't change. You don't touch anything outside of that. We've seen it in the first airplane crash, and Matsumoto basically stopped Vivy and basically said, don't change anything outside of the program. This is exactly what we're going to do. Don't mess with anything else. And so if he's seen that anything else was out of the norm, he shouldn't touch it. So thus he could see something change, something dramatic that was not in that snapshot, he wouldn't want to change it. And that would be what that future something is adjusting things. And my last point is, and this is kind of a two-sided coin. This is kind of both in line with the idea that Matsumoto, the program, is not from Dr. Matsumoto, or a miscalculation by Dr. Matsumoto himself. And the idea that technically, if you think about it, besides maybe the Sunrise Hotel, most everything here deals that they have done so far, every singularity point itself has something to do with the suppression of AI. And so while Matsumoto, and it could be a thing where it's in both, where some things are the will of Dr. Matsumoto and some are the will of another source. So the first one was to prevent the assassination from a guy that was essentially, him dying would have helped the AI in giving them rights. The second one was to stop an island where AI were able to thrive and progress further and thus become a more advanced technology. And that in turn was kind of wrapped up in the idea of, AI marriage and all that kind of stuff. And then following that, of course, was getting into the idea of this singing AI that was essentially showing signs to people that AI can have souls, and stopping that thus then prevents them from seeing that, or at least believing that. So not necessarily that they're all in the idea of we need to stop AIs from getting more rights, but more necessarily the idea of things that gave people an impression that AI could be more than what they actually are. And so in a sense, you can see it as every change they made AI less viable and slowed down the progress of what an AI can be or be seen as. And again, this goes back to the idea of, could this in theory be tied into the idea of something besides Dr. Matsumoto wanting to suppress the AI to the point where they would attack, or the idea of Dr. Matsumoto trying too hard to suppress the idea of AIs advancing, that he ended up having a reverse effect. So he thinks he's helping the situation by stopping this progress to eventually get to this point, but in suppressing it, it builds up so much pressure that it eventually explodes even worse than what you originally believe. It's the idea of trying to clog the pipe, but then you realize the pressure gets so heavy, the rest of it explodes. And that's really where I kind of fall in. Again, I'm really trying to go with this idea of Matsumoto possibly not being what Dr. Matsumoto sent. But again, I go back to my biggest flaw in that idea, which is we never really get another external voice that really indicates that Dr. Matsumoto was trying to push Vivy forward, or Diva forward, for the Singularity Project itself. But they still kind of go in line. And again, it is kind of the troubling thing. It's really hard to theorize on something that is, dealing with time, just because it's fickle. I almost want to go back and rewatch each point that Matsumoto the program. I hate that I say Matsumoto the program, Dr. Matsumoto, but Matsumoto the program, every time that he first talks to Vivy at each singularity point, and I'm curious if at one point, if there's a gap there, because I want to say there was at one point he came back and he said something that didn't sound right. There was a time thing that didn't sound right, but that's not a confirmation. That's just literally me getting sidetracked with a thought there, because I think that there was at one point the time that he mentioned didn't sound right. But again, I could be wrong, but something to look into. But yeah, that's it's a lot of crazy things happening, and I'm really curious to going forward what is going to be the thing. My other thing that I really did kind of want to mention is going back to the idea of Matsumoto, the program actually being what Dr. Matsumoto sent, assuming he's a good person. And in this, why did Matsumoto not shut down? The assumption is that Matsumoto, the program, did not shut down after the last singularity point was because he gained a new objective, which was to help Vivy sing again. He was given an objective by Diva to help Vivy. Now, that's all good, but Diva didn't create Matsumoto. So him being able to create a new purpose, yeah, you can argue that technically Matsumoto gave Diva a new purpose, and that's why Vivy was created. But you can say that there's a little bit of hard. It is hard to say that Diva could essentially give Matsumoto a new purpose. He is a more future technology. There should be something in line to prevent that. My thought is that this is something that Dr. Matsumoto had programmed as well. That the last singularity point was not it, and this singularity point is the last one. So essentially, Dr. Matsumoto created all these singularity points that had to be changed, created a program, and sent it back in time to Diva, and that was Matsumoto, the program. And this program has hit every single one of these singularity points, and even though he claims that the last singularity point was the last one, this is actually the last one, and this is where he is supposed to essentially give Vivy purpose. And that's his goal. So this is the last singularity point, technically. Now, as to if everything going to fire and to crap is part of that, I don't think so, because then essentially everything's failed. But it could be that the expectation was that things were going to get bad no matter what. Maybe Dr. Matsumoto knew that even though he was trying to hit all these singularity points, there was still going to be some death, but that she would actually prevent it. Because the whole point, the one thing that still sticks in my head is technically the reason why Diva specifically was chosen, and Matsumoto, the program, said this, was because they knew that she was the only AI that was going to be around for that entire 100-year singularity point. So why even bring that up when technically the last singularity point was before she even went into a museum? It doesn't make any sense. So obviously, they knew there was going to be another singularity point after she went into the museum. So it's hard to ignore that. Unless that's a completely bad written dialogue there, it assumes that there's a singularity point still, and that they knew that something was going to happen. So that's really curious for me. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot to talk about in an episode that seemingly should be pretty simple. So yeah, a lot of theories flying around. We're definitely getting into the big grand final battle. We have 3 more episodes left. So we have hopefully plenty of time to really hit on a lot of stuff and see where this goes from here. Hopefully we don't have another time jump. I'm hoping they don't. That's the struggle. It's like, okay, obviously now a lot of people believe that they failed. Everybody's dying. Don't do another time jump. Don't try to fix this. I mean, it happened. I don't want him to go, okay, let's jump back one more time and then have this whole speed forward thing to fix certain things. But we'll see. But that's my thoughts on episode 10 of Vivy Fluorite Ice Song. Definitely an excellent episode. Really great. Very beautiful. Some great music. Great character moments especially. But looking forward to how this is going to conclude. But I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of my crazy theories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share if you can. And I thank you all for watching. And y'all take care.